Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new 8Bitdo SN30 Pro Bluetooth gamepad colorways. Now, we've got two of them here which look absolutely amazing, and I really can't tell which one I like more. Now, I'm a huge fan of Atomic Purple, but this Jade Green that they just released looks really awesome. I'd have to say, if I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the purple because you know how it is. When it comes to Atomic Purple, the closer you can get to it, the more I like it. But this Jade looks really, really great. Now, these are the SN30 Pro controllers. I personally like these as kind of carry-around controllers. Unfortunately, they don't support the Ultimate software, but it's a smaller, pocketable controller, very easy to travel with, and these basically work with everything. Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android. They work with the Nintendo Switch and even the Steam Deck. And everything that I just named there, it'll work wirelessly over Bluetooth with each one of those systems, be it an iPhone, iPad, Android tablet, Android phone. These also have a gyro built in, so if you want to use a game on your Nintendo Switch, like let's say Mario Odyssey, it does support a gyro. For some functions, this will work with it. Overall, been a huge fan of these 8Bitdo controllers, especially the SN30 Pros. And now that we've got a few different colors to choose from, these are definitely looking a little more appealing. You can pick these up on Amazon and I'll leave a link in the description, but in this video I kind of just wanted to go over what this thing can do and what we can use it with. First things first, whenever I get a new 8Bitdo controller, I personally like to update the firmware. Now I do think that this might already be updated because it's their latest revision, but it's easy enough just to check. You can do it from a Mac, but it's easy enough to check with their software. You can head over to their website and download their firmware upgrade tool. This will work for Mac or Windows. Okay, alright, so first things first, upgrading the firmware. Now, the latest as making this video is 2.0, and I believe this controller already came with 2.0, but you can head over to their website, download their upgrade tool. Unfortunately, the SN30 Pro non-Plus versions are not compatible with the Ultimate software. Be awesome if it was, but unfortunately you have to go with the Pro Plus to get that. Either way, upgrading the firmware is super easy. You're going to download the Windows or the Mac OS version, depending on what operating system you're running. Once we've got it downloaded, we'll just start it up. We'll go ahead and plug our controller in. And as you can see, we've got the SN30 Pro version 2.00. If I check for an update, this is the latest update. And it also gives a log on what the latest firmware is fixed or improved upon. So really easy to do that. And I usually check once every other month with my controllers. So now that you've got your firmware updated, it's time to connect this to our console, our PC, our Raspberry Pi, basically whatever works with a Bluetooth controller, we can connect this 8Bitdo controller to. We're going to start out with the Switch, super easy to do. We're going to go over to the controller section, change grip order, and basically all I'm going to do here is turn the controller on. It's going to automatically find this controller for me. So we hold that start button. It's going to power it up. And there's a few different modes that we can actually enable here. When powering on the controller, if we hold, let's say Y, it's going to put us into switch mode. Obviously, that's what we want when we're running on a Switch. If you want to connect this to your PC properly, hold X and power the controller up. That's going to bring us into X input mode. We've also got D input mode by holding B, and Mac OS mode by holding A and powering the controller up. With my Windows PC, my Android phone, and even my Steam Deck, I use X input mode, so I'll always usually have this set up in X input. But I wanted to show you this working here on the Nintendo Switch. Getting to some N64 here with Wave Race. There was no extra setup that I needed to do here. I've got it in Switch mode, and it connects right to the Nintendo Switch. And when it comes to the new Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games that we can play on the Nintendo Switch, I like having a real D-pad. Now, there are Joy-Cons out there that do offer a real D-pad. But, you know, going to a controller like this is kind of what I usually do, just to get away from the separated D-pads that's on the stock Joy-Cons. And like I mentioned, this also has a gyro built in. So while we're playing something like Mario Odyssey, we've got it right here. No extra settings need to be enabled or anything like that. We can use the kind of limited gyro function that this game has, but other games I believe support a lot more. I'm personally not a huge fan of gyro-based games, but it's here if you need it. The latest firmware for these 8Bitdo controllers is fully compatible with iPad OS, iOS, and even Mac OS. We've got Genshin Impact here running maxed out at 120 Hz. Now I really do wish that the version for Android supported controllers right out of the box. Of course you can always use a third-party mapper and then map this controller. But with iOS, Genshin Impact does support controllers. And if you've got an iPhone or an iPad, you know, Apple Arcade, all of those games already support controllers, so you're not going to have an issue using this 8Bitdo with those games also. And of course, if you're using Android, you can pair this up right in X input mode, and if the game supports a controller, it's going to work with it. Now, there are a few exceptions on the market, like Call of Duty Mobile. Unfortunately, that only supports first-party controllers, but you could use a third-party mapper to get this working. But Minecraft, Asphalt 9, there's hundreds of games that'll support this right out of the box. Another thing I always like to test with these controllers is the D-pad functionality for fighting games, just to make sure we can pull off these special moves easily. I've got Redream, the Dreamcast emulator, with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on my Windows PC here, and it feels just as good as their other D-pad. They've done a great job over the years listening to user feedback for their D-pads. This is definitely one of the best on the market. And the final thing I wanted to show off was, Steam Deck support. So playing it with the built-in screen really doesn't make much sense, but if you've got this connected to an external monitor, really awesome to have an extra controller. Personally, I pair this up in X input mode, and it kind of shows up as an Xbox controller. It'll still say SN30 Pro when you're pairing it over Bluetooth, but that way we have all of our buttons in the correct layout, at least for US layout. Now, it'll also pair in D input mode if you want to use it that way, but I found that, most of the controller configurations that we're using with the Steam Deck do kind of transfer a lot better over to X input. For instance, this game here, if I was to connect it in D input, my web shooter wasn't mapped correctly, so all I did was just unpair it, put it in X input mode, and I'm good to go. I can play all of my favorite Steam Deck games here. And like I mentioned, having this connected to a larger display is probably the way to go when you're using an external controller. But you could set this up in tabletop mode and do a two-player game just like this with two of these controllers connected to the Steam Deck. When it comes to the 8Bitdo SN30 Pro, this is kind of one of my carry-around controllers. I've got a few of their different variants that they offer, but I'm loving these new colorways here, and it just fits right in my bag. Doesn't take up much space at all, and it actually gets some really great battery life also. So overall, loving the new colorways here. Got a great D-pad, we've got that gyro built in, and there is a turbo functionality that you can actually set up. I'm not too keen on it, but it's super easy to set up. Controllers come with all of the instructions you need to get this up and running on basically any kind of device that you have. But one thing I'd love to see in the future is the addition of ultimate software support for the SN30 Pros. I know the Plus has it, and it does come in really handy for basically adjusting everything on the controller. From the dead zones to the feedback intensity, it just would be really nice to have it on here. And I know the Plus has it, but I personally like having these a little better because they're a lot more portable in my opinion. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below, and if you're interested in picking up either the Jade or the Purple, I'll leave some links in the description. And like always, thanks for watching.